Hi chess friends, this is King's Executor. My microphone was broken, so I had to purchase a new one. I hope the sound is better now. Today we'll have a look at the From's Gambit. I've already showed you two games of mine yet in the From's Gambit, being white. And this time I want to show you what I would play if black would start differently. The From's Gambit is introduced by e5, decoying my f-pawn, and black really offers me this pawn in the beginning, which is okay to take, but it's not altogether clear how strong black's compensation is after taking on d6 and recapturing with tempo and giving black the opportunity to develop, and giving a tempo early on to have an advantage in development is really a good idea actually. Well, if you give this to the engines, I think it's rather equal. Maybe white is winning in the end game. It's not clear, and I wouldn't really advise you to go into this as white, because you give black tacticians the opportunity to get their game they're used to. So I think a good thing is to decline such a gambit and just force your opponent into areas of your knowledge, areas of your preparation, which he might not at all be prepared against. So knight f3 developing, and there are different ways for black. For example, knight to c6, still offering the gambit pawn on d6, and as you saw in my previous games, e4 here, and if black takes, you pin this knight and you threaten to double black's pawns here. Afterwards you play d3, because when your bishop is gone, your light squared bishop, you want your pawns on the light squares. That compensates in a way your missing light squared bishop. And as well, you don't want to play d4 in such a position. You don't want to open up the game too much and make it black easy to attack you or to find counterplay. So you keep a modest solid center here with d3, and afterwards this bishop, as I said before, wouldn't have too much prospects, because it would be hemmed in and only be able to move on these light squares, and well, more than being on this diagonal is not visible to me, and I don't know if this would be effective in any way, and I would be forced to keep my bishop there. That's why I really exchange this piece off, and the structural damage here is really important. Afterwards you have typical maneuvers in this position, and this is a good way to play because you know what you're heading for. Well, in the previous games, black allowed me to double his pawns. In another game, black denied me the opportunity of doubling his pawns. Now today we're going to look at possibilities for black to play different here. For example, if we move back in this position, black could already take the pawn, and if you play e4 to transpose in our favorite position, knight c6 would transpose now. But what about this logical development of black immediately looking at the optically weakened f2 square? Then we have the opportunity to play c3 and try to attack the bishop and get a interesting pawn formation. If knight c6 now, b4, and the bishop has at least two ways to go. Of course, the bishop could move back to e7, but I guess d6 is preferable to reinforce the e-pawn. Or black wants to keep an eye on this diagonal, which was the reason why black put the bishop there in the first place. Let's see what if black stepped back here and stayed on this diagonal. Then knight to a3, immediately pointing the finger on c4 and trying to get the advantage of the bishop pair. And if a6 to prevent this, knight c4 anyway, bishop a7, this could be a line that your opponent chooses to keep the bishop pair. Queen c2. After queen c2, e4 is protected, and the knight on c4 is ready to capture on e5 now. Well, in this position it's not possible because you would allow black tactics to gain material afterwards, but after queen c2 it's safe. And you're also threatening a4 and b5, kicking this knight, gaining space on the queen side, activating your rook. And to prevent this, b5 would be a good move here, but now you just simply gain a pawn, and if knight takes, we recapture. And now, you know, black's plan is not really clear in this position. Bishop b7, for example, d4, and you see white is optically dominating this position, and I think it's really difficult for an average player to find good moves. I think black can lose very quickly with little inaccuracies already. If queen h4, then queen to f2 is a good move. You see, we are preparing this with the move d4, opening defensive lines, but as well attacking lines here. As you can tell, if black regains his pawn and we develop our pieces, then there are two possibilities which are decent for black, but I don't think that this position already is reasonable for black. There is this opportunity of taking on e5, takes, and now you see the pawns are even in terms of number, but white got the bishop pair, and I think with the endgame coming, this is a big advantage to white. Also, white has already space on the queen side. It's ready for a4. The rooks are ready to come into the game. This pawn is hemming down the development of this knight. So I think this is an advantageous position for white. Well, this is, if bishop b6 was played, this is an opportunity you might get. But on bishop d6, reinforcing the pawn on e5, again knight to a3, I think this is the key move. Well, knight to f6, attacking the white pawn, we defend it with a developing move. And if castles, bishop to e2, and now we're soon ready to play knight to c4. At some point b5 might be good as well, in other positions as well. This is a move you always have to keep in mind, kicking this knight from defending e5. There are sometimes tactical opportunities to do that, and you can just win the bishop pair, or else black is losing time by moving back and forth with the bishop. Okay, let's go back to the beginning. If knight to c6 here, e4 again, and if black takes on e5, this is the move we want to play, bishop to b5. And if bishop to c5 now, you see the first example was bishop to c5 in this position. Now bishop c5 is played on move 5. Now we double black's pawns. We play knight onto c3, and now we are ready to attack the bishop on a4. And if black were to dissuade us by playing knight to f6, attacking or keeping an eye on the e4 pawn, d3, again renewing the threat of knight to a4, and if a5 to keep the bishop pair and this bishop on the same diagonal, on the same diagonal, then queen to e2, which is also a key move in this line, preparing bishop to e3, and if queen to e7, we develop here, and this exchange of dark squared bishops really helps white. After exchanging this bishop, black would have no hope whatsoever in attacking white on the dark squares, which might be weakened if white isn't careful. After exchanging this dark squared bishop, white would be left with a white pawn chain against the light squared bishop, and this would be a positional imbalance that helps you reducing this light squared bishop's function. If rook to b8, attacking the b2 pawn, well, we take this bishop off, and we can play simply queen to d2, because rook b2 is not possible due to knight a4 forking. Let's just look at this forking. queen and rook, and this loses material here. This is clear. Sorry, we were in this position. Queen to d2 is possible because of this tactics, so b2 is immune. And if black castles here, which is a reasonable move, knight to a4, and if queen to b5, b3, really having the pawns on the same colors as the remaining black bishop, and really shutting down any queenside activity by a black, so the rook here has really no good job at all. The knight is ready to come back. You can have this maneuver attacking the pawn, or having the possibility even to reroute your knight here and even here, and preparing a kingside attack. Or you move back here, and afterwards maybe here, and this way. You see, you are quite flexible in this opening, and you always can change plans. You see, the knight on c4 would attack a5, and well, I don't think it would help black afterwards to move the pawn and exchanging maybe here, because it would open this file to white, and this is giving white the opportunity to attack those weaknesses in black structure. So you see, rook to the e file and castles. This is a completely nice and advantageous position for white. And well, you might ask, where is black's mistake in this line? Maybe playing, sorry, not this line, which would be the main line of the From's Gambit. Well, these are all sensible moves. Black has really a wide option of how to develop and how to move the pieces, but as you can tell, black has two things to think of. A, do I want to double my pawns, or let my pawns be doubled, or do I concentrate on the dark squares to attack the white king? And thirdly, what about my e-pawn? These are thoughts which are good to give your opponents early on in the game, and I think you are really prepared now to play this position. You know the ideas, in this opening, and if your opponent plays differently, of course they will not play exactly as I showed you, but I played moves which follow the thought process of players who are confronted with this opening the first time in their lives, and they can react one way or the other. Your plan is flexible, but it's concrete as well. If one idea doesn't work, then the other will work for you, and more or less it's always the same. Okay, so I want to really really advise you to play in this manner with knight to f3 and e4 afterwards, and play the game, the type of game I introduced to you. I hope to see many comments and thumbs up for my video. I appreciate it. Please subscribe, and I'll keep the videos coming.